Alright, so welcome everyone, and here in this lesson we'd like to talk about the further detailing of our fluids. As you have already seen in the previous lesson, we did created the fluid container and we also do rotated the fluid container, and here if I'll go to the object mode you could see that the z-axis is being downside and y-axis is being towards this way. It's not following the world coordinate axis, it's following its own local, or you can say the object mode coordinate axis. So we just did that because we want fluids to move and to follow in that way. Absolutely right. But there are certain issues, as you could see that the fluids are also being getting resized from downside of the ground. So what we need to do first is that we need to fix some few things. Well, this section is also, focusing on the scene size and the scale of the, you can say, the the background or the BG that I have already considered. Uh, it may could vary. It may could be different in other scenarios as well. So what I need to do with respect to the BG that I have created is that I need to go to the outliner and I need to first select the plane 2, which is basically the fluid emitter. So let me just change the name first. Let's say the dusty storm fluid emitter. All right, makes life easy. And what we need to do is that we need to put that thing inside the group. So you remember what is the group? The group is basically the container for the fluid. So we do one thing, let's say the dusty fluid group. That sounds easy. So now we do have that. What we need to do is that we need still a little bit, we need to enhance the size of the group. Just why? Because, you know, when we're going to play the simulations, the no doubt the fluids are coming absolutely good, but all is just required is to position and to scale it appropriately based upon the background scene size and scaling. All right. So my group is selected over here, and I just need to take it down to 5, which I just double it, and we also need to fix that so that it shouldn't go under the ground, and by pressing alt and the downside arrow keys I can position it more properly. So here it is. Okay, now we could do one thing, that we can also position our fluid container absolutely good. And when I'm going to play the timeline, I also observe that in the auto resize section, which surely we're going to cover later, we do have the resize close boundaries checked on. So we need to close that up, because this means that the resize of the close boundary, that means the boundaries that do have, which are actually have both the sides, will also going to get resized. I mean, this option will not going to adhere, or will not going to take care of the both sides boundaries. It will going to make it resize again. So we don't want in that case to do. And since now we have discussed about the auto resize, let's just bring some more light upon that. Auto resize threshold is not required to be this way. We could drop it to 0.002 voxels, and the auto resize margin should be set that thing to the 4, so that the fluid should move properly. Most of the cases people do not use this option, but will, I mean, in our case, like, we're going to have a lot of voxels. So, and unfortunately the classic fluids also do not support the adaptivity, so that's why we need to be very very precautions. We need to have a lot of precautions while using these attributes. This is going to eat up a lot of your rams, computational steps, x, y, z, etc, etc, etc. Okay, so one need to pay a lot of attention towards the auto resize margin. We just cannot enhance the value. That means that it will going to resize for this much of the xyz total 9 voxels, so which is like quite a big thing. So 4 to 5 will going to be the most appropriate values for that, and leave the base resolutions for 150 only. The final course will going to end up at the base resolutions of approximately 250 to 300, depending upon your machine and all of that. But I do insist that if you're going to take the renders for 300 resolution, you're going to find a lot of crispy details in that. So moving forward, what do we have right now? Let's go back to the bookmarks and play the timeline. Okay, that's absolutely good. The good thing is that we do have the big fluids that are coming close towards us. Now, as you could see that my timeline is still being going on. The system speed is also quite okay. But the main problem is that if you notice that, within hardly 40 frames, the fluid has crossed this much of the distance. That means the speed of the fluid is absolutely non-considerable with respect to the type of reaction which we are creating. So that means we need to fix few things. First of all, we haven't gone much into the sections of the dynamic simulations, the content details that has the sections for the density, velocity, and turbulence. So let me just make you clear. We're going to utilize these 1, 2, 3 sections, and we're going to rely upon them, to be frank, the density, velocity, and the turbulence. But before we proceed to them, we also do need to take care of certain attributes of the dynamic simulations. We don't have the viscosity, we don't have the damp, we don't have the substeps, high detail solve, and so many other things are there. So what do we need to do? Well, let's just do one thing, move step by step. First of all, under the display, we need to cut down the boundary draw to the bottom to bounding box so that it would be easier for us to focus upon the fluid container. It's just, the particular choice. The viscosity needs to be done a little bit. I would like to go with 0.025 because this being the dust, and it too carries a little amount of viscosity to create the realistic behavior of that. The damp is also required since the dust will going to get settled up. So let's say 0.050, or maybe you could give zero point 0.1 as well, because this reaction is really going to be so slow. You just cannot expect that the fluid should move in a highly turbulent way. So we need to take care of so many other attributes also to support the damp. And of course, when we have to move towards the high detail solve, we need to give all grids. And then let's just do one thing with these. First of all, just take a look at that. So right here in front of me, you could see that there is little amount of the change inside the fluids if you just notice from the previous reaction. And it's not actually too much, but we still need to go road ahead. Well, the case is that we need to work upon the substeps. Now, notice the thing very carefully. When I'm going to utilize the substeps to, let's say, 3, you're going to see that the fluid will start showing the lesser size of the plumes, or you can say these voxels. So now if I'm gonna play the timeline, you're gonna see that first of all, it's gonna take a little bit amount of the time to solve the fluids because now we are utilizing the 3 substeps, and that has significantly dropped down the size of the voxels, or you can say the dusty plumes. So that's a very important and considerable point in that way. So now one important thing is also left, that is the utilizations of the emittance substeps. So if you are utilizing the substeps, you are also required to use the emittance substeps as well. Now, it has some impact. It will going to eat the computational time of your processor, which is solely the only thing that is basically solving the fluids. And with that, it is going to affect the fluids. And also, we are required to change the solver quality. It's set to 20. We are required to give it to approximately, let's say, 150 because we want some crispier details as well. So now if we're going to play the timeline, you're going to see that the time will going to be increase, but the quality in the simulations will also going to be more as compared to the previous one. Now, the only problem here in this is that it's still having a lot of speed. Well, I've gone through with certain videos available at the YouTube. If you could just gonna log onto the YouTube and type the Arizona dusty storm, or you can say Kuwait dusty storm, you're gonna see that these dusty storms are not too fast. They are little slow in the speed. So in this case, we do have another problem, that is the speed. That means the simulation rate scale is quite a high with respect to the originality or the original concept of the dusty storm. So what we're going to do is that we're going to drop this right now. We'll take a pause and we'll go to the next lesson where we're going to see some another solutions for that. Okay, and we're going to fix the issues of the high speed moving dusty winds. All right, so I'm going to take a pause over there. I'm going to save that scene and then we're going to see you in the next lesson.